I would like to start on a slower note. You'll have had a really rich and full two-day program. What can be actually absorbed after such a long time? As a conclusion, I would like to say that maybe one take-home message is sufficient for my presentation, but before I will actually share some other words. Biography. Actually, how does it play a role in my daily life? How does it emerge in my life? Where do I come into contact with biography? And what is it all about? In biography, we're talking about lived lives, but a lived or experienced life is starting in the now and here. Actually, biography starts here. How have I lived is one question. Was I able to forge my life? How does my life look like, and how is it today? And how am I living my life with a bit more meditative approach? How am I living my life? Am I living my life? Or am I maybe just constantly busy the whole day, getting things done? So is it more of an actography or a performance, a record rather than a biography, because there is not so much, it's not so filled with bios, with life, actually. This boils down to the question. And the question is, do I live my life, and how do I live my life? This boils down to me, myself. Do I have myself in view? Do I have my life in view while living my life? And this brings in the biographical perspective. And we are centered on the biographical perspective here in this presentation, and also the contents of the biography. The special thing about a biographical perspective is actually the focus on the fundamental feature of existence. Namely, it has to do with the underlying issue that is, I exist, I'm here. But how am I here? And this, of course, leads to the question, I exist. It's something so big we cannot grasp it. It's like a tree, the crown of a tree, the upper part of a tree, all the greenery. How is it possible to anchor it via the stem, via the branches in the here and now? How is it possible to break down this greatness into everyday life? In this situation which is already existing in this being a throne, how can we make our existence solid, tangible? Sometimes, especially on Sundays in the early mornings, when I do not hear the alarm clock, and I lie in my bed, and actually thoughts come up, quite odd thoughts. Without doing much, actually the question arises, what does my life look like? What is it about? What is its course? What do I see of my life, actually? And then we see three different horizons emerging. It starts with everyday aspects. with the mundane. Very often there is something to do, even on Sundays. Suddenly, however, I feel something, the wonder, the miracle of being there, of existing, that I can be and live. I have to confess to myself that this feeling shining through is not comprehensible to me, not understandable. This incomprehensibility feels like a great emptiness. So in the face of this greatness, which I cannot actually grasp or capture, there is great emptiness. And this is actually the pathway of the Eastern culture to be present of this emptiness. But however, for me, an enculturated Austrian, the comprehensible pushes itself into the incomprehensible autonomously. So there is something to do, daily things on my to-do list, what is waiting for me in the afternoon, in the evening. Many concrete things, such as time planning, choice of clothes, appointments, sports, which emails to send out first, and so forth. This way, I notice that the everyday routine actually sets me free from the big question of what to do in this emptiness. But actually, every day is full with things having to till the field of life relieves me of the big question. Sometimes there is the experience of something we cannot grasp or understand. And once again, we find there's something shining through, but still something escaping or eloping. And if the flow of service of life is interrupted, maybe during vacation, on a weekend, but also due to illness or a mishap or an accident. So, which is something that is not our everyday life, but maybe like on the beach or in my bed. Well, actually, you have a different horizon. The horizon of life planning. And I reflect upon my profession, my family, my relationships, goals, pathways. At the same time, I compare this. We compare what we do and what we have achieved with what we want, actually, what we strive for, what we hope for, and what we long for. Things we have actually hoped for and longed for. And here I put my life in a broader horizon. Here, I'm not someone who's only living but shaping my life because I have my biography in view. Sometimes another issue arises within the horizon. Another horizon going even a little bit beyond, disappearing into the distance, but at the beginning is clearly visible. And actually, I tend asking myself, is that really me? And I feel estranged to myself. Is it me or am I following a script? Is it me? The one who was once was this child, the teenager, wanting to jump on trees, and a young adult having so many ideas, and with many movements within me that I had caught fire for, many ideas and things I had turned against. I see and I feel all of that. I'm all of that within me. I can see the child within me. I can be quite childish too. And all of this lies within me. But how have I lived? And if I have a look backwards onto my life, I ask myself, am I satisfied in my life? Is it filling me? Have I stayed stuck or have I become something or somebody? And how do I take part? How do I participate in? Do I forge my life? Maybe can we still do? What is my benchmark? Am I currently giving shape to my life or is my life crumbling away? Crumbling like a drying sandcastle in the wind, slowly losing its distinctive shape. So these introductory, somewhat personalized introduction is actually intended to introduce us to the main topic and immediately clarifies the essence of biography. Biography is actually not the past. It's not history. Well, of course it is. But at the same time, we have to say that biography takes place today. It's most important for us today that biography is not restricted to the past, but actually is present in everyday life, in today, in the awareness of what I'm doing today. This is biography. This creates a biography. Existential biography takes place today. Today is the site, the place of the datus nascendi, of the origin and inception of biography. Because I'm shaping my life with every action. I create a home for life. And the moment it happens, it's already life history. And even plans for the future flow into the present, in the present day. And in everyday life, however, our view of how we shape our lives and our worries is very often overshadowed. And we can lose track of the far-reaching angle. Existential biography is strictly linked to the dimension of today. And how is today's life linked to the general life? We have a bigger horizon, namely the special type of future I will have lived one day. But now at present, we still have a simple future in mind. I would like to speak about these topics. The first one, well, we have already touched upon that, but we would like to speak about the existential content of biography, existential content. But the question is, how is biography created? Life is indeed a short period of time. So retrospectively, it's very short. And then there is becoming, development, growth, maturation, aging, and death. And the whole of life is influenced, is impacted by a connection, by a link between myself and otherness and other things. This is the basic layer for biography, which is, of course, influenced by genetics and environment, learning and being conditioned, external imprinting, both ownness and otherness, my awareness and the awareness of others, my awareness vis-a-vis cognition and received education, adjustment, learning. We're talking about characteristics. It's the fact that many things are preset in life, but we still have the ability to forge things, to create on the basis of what already exists. We can celebrate our meals. We can celebrate, we can be artistic in our relationship with clothing, for instance. But we can also suffer under the preset systems. Sometimes it's too much, too little, too addictive, too disgusting, too painful, too obstructive, too worthless. We're talking about the predetermined things. The art is to create a culture out of that. But actually, there is some creative space. This is the core, we can say, the nucleus for this biography. The space where that constitutes biography via our actions. We write our biography down like a book. It's a life, a script. Graphene means to write. Biography means to write your life. It's the record of what I add to what comes to me from the world and life. Everyone, every single person molds their life. This is why biography is unmistakably my life. It's not a chronicle. It's not a list of data, an accumulation of the past, of past events. Biography actually takes place at the interface where the future, which has not yet been written down, but it is nevertheless very influential, merges into the unchangeable past that has been lived forever. Each and every moment has been lived in a certain manner forever. But actually, this interface is me. So biography happens through me, not by itself. It happens via me, through me, like a channel. This is an aspect I attach great importance to in my own biography. As Christoph Kolbe mentioned already, the existential view of biography encompasses also the view of the future. And he also mentioned existential psychiatrist Blankenberg. He pointed out the error that biography is often only understood to in the past, but understanding what a person has become also involves understanding what they have lived towards the future, so to say. We have to use it in order to be able to understand our lives. And here, the shaping of life becomes visible. So the essential aspect of biography is what we turned life into. From the flow of time, what we took and changed on the basis of the material, we transformed, we turned into culture what we have embodied. So it's a person whom we have given a face. So this means that biography always happens in the now, always in the confluence of the existing, the past, and what is developing. And it's this that we should be aware of. Every moment is embedded in the overall shape of our lives. The overall shape of our lives, which actually binds together and contains the past and the future in terms of shaping and becoming. As we can see here from the image on the slide, this is the present moment, the past, birth, the future, ending with death, or at least temporarily ending with death, the fact of having become, as well as the draft, the projet in French, to project. Project means to project from Greek yekto, so to launch into the future. So it's an anticipated future, the projected life, so to say. How does biography take place? So what degree of formality does it have? What is the process, how it happens? So we have two different patterns. Just try to imagine you're going to a class reunion. So what are you interested in? Well, how have these people developed? What destiny have these people suffered or experienced, and how did they deal with them? These are two topics, namely becoming and developing. These two terms or concepts encompass essential information to understand biography. To become means turning into something new, something that had not existed before. If oxygen and hydrogen are meat, water is created. If egg and sperm cell meet, a human being is created. Nobody can be born alone. It's only the interaction and the meeting. It's the most important things of becoming is the new things developing therefrom, while development means that it's like a coil that is developed or enveloped. It's something that is already preset, probably. But when we're talking about what I have developed into, I'm referring to the new that, thanks to the interaction with others, is become something different. So something new that has become in all my relationships. What is the personality I obtained? And on that basis, we can start to see what is the impact or the events from outside and what is implicitly what has implicitly impacted. So development are actually the fact of having been is an amalgam of circumstances that have happened to you and your own contribution. This gives rise to the new, the unique, the one of a kind, the personal life story. So the existential contents of a biography, well, for that, we need a look on development, maturing, aging, and passing away.
Development occurs in the confrontation with others. Development is the unfolding of potential. Children don't develop in circumstances. They need rich environments. They have to unfold the potentials. Walking, speaking, singing, writing, thinking. And this includes also mistakes, errors, failures, successes, recognition. Not only does one's own experience play a major role in development, but on the other hand, also the influence of other people. It's very important for the development. And here, the education is external, large external factor. Education is which should be designed to promote development. In education, children are taught social rules and norms so that they can better integrate into society and have and cause fewer problems. Inculturation, the shaping of the public ego or superego All this is important for a human being. It's important for the biographical significance and is the extent to which a person has been shaped by their upbringing and the course they have set for their life and the extent to which they have emancipated themselves from the influence and be able to live their own life. While development is understood as the shaping, growth is basically just an increase in size, volume, skills. When a child learns to walk, it would be the development of a capacity. For predisposition, however, the more it improves, the more it will one day grow into a marathon runner. This aspect of practicing and multiplying is also biography. Hmm? It's probably the highest form of this predisposition. The maturation is utmost important when we ask ourselves, do I feel mature? Are I a mature human being? It's not very modern asking this question to oneself. You have capacity, you have a potential, which is maturing. Maturing means that formally leads to a peak in the availability of potential and does not just mean, for example, getting older. In general, aging is not necessarily linked to maturing. There are also very immature elderly people, but maturing is linked to time. It needs time and it needs experiences. Experiences in which one has reflected on oneself. And this triggers development. And if this leads to ever improving skills, it results in a mature ability. Then, so the fruit of maturity is gaining in competence. When I'm really mature, for example, therapy, talks, in counseling, after learning, after studying, when I reach this maturity and experiences, then I reach this mature status. I just took a long time to arrive there, but then somehow and somewhere, many years ago, I didn't feel mature. This is a gaining in competence in relation to life. Maturity is the completion of a development through which the person feels autonomous and independent, and I can live it in a fulfilling way. The basis for this personal process are these personal the processes as described in the personal existential analysis. This can be seen as a basis. There are also other like growing and gaining competence, which are to be added. Immaturity, on the other hand, is the lack of development. One is not able to cope with the situation. And the inner force excessive demands, then a dependence on others arises, and this can lead into conflicts. And this often repeats itself, and the pathology can easily arise. The mature personality has adjusted to and accepted the fact that life does not go according to one's own ideas. So it can control themselves, self-distancing, self-acceptance, and can cope with those situations. So the mature person can therefore distance themselves from themselves and control themselves. Then in the article, there's the cognitive maturity and so on. I will describe these. And after this presentation, I would like to do the proposal. Probably this could be seen as wise when you can cope with the basic conditions of life, to be good with the world, with myself, to, as a biography, the history of the becoming, of the development, maturation, and aging. Let's talk about aging. It's a new way of being in the world. It requires a new understanding of the self and the world due to processes of degradation. Everything decreases, and let's say it could be also be described as a development because it's a natural way to slow down, to become physically weaker. That's a natural process, and we have to wear and tear knees, hips, and backs. That's a normal development. And we should try to get the greatest benefit of old age, being able to settle in with yourself. And the such a process can be impressive, and it's like condensed life. And then the biography, that is the highlight, so to say. Old people are once again faced with the fundamental question of the existence, its limits, its transience, its unavailability, its what for. So how can they cope with the less and less on the outside and turn more to the inner world? The view becomes biographical. The greatest benefit of old age is being able to settle in with yourself. That is development, but it's also becoming. It's just not about shaping and development. There could also be strokes, falls, illness, memory loss, and there's something new which is not just due to predisposition. And I would like to continue with the last chapter and how we are working with the biographical perspective that I can cope, I can exist, and how can I break this up into my own life? Which kind of mediator am I? And how can I? How can I contribute something? A 50-year-old woman, very successful, had a very good life, no problem. But she tells me that now she's run into a problem because she works too much. And she does not feel when she gets tired. And so she feels increasingly exhausted. Physical symptoms start to appear. And she has the feeling that she has not enough time. And so she feels pressure. She did a therapy years ago because she felt oppressed. She felt kind of not good. She said she has a lot of interests. I like everything, but years ago she felt forced. But she has the problem that she cannot say no, and she would like to go on like this. She could also imagine probably another 100 years. But now she says, I'm getting older. I realize the limitations of life and that my strength is already warning to some extent. This puts me under pressure because I realize that I don't have enough time left to do everything I would like to do. And that's why I can't accept my body, which it's insufficient resources. because I have so many things I want to experience and so many plans, and I can only realize so little of them. And I have to constantly put off so many interesting things. So she cannot, there's no place for everything in her life. We would talk about a pre-existential attitude. So it's the feeling of missing something out and not getting enough done because there's never enough time. In the evening, let's say it drives her to a peak performance towards the evening, and she fills every minute with activities, often doing several things at the same time. But her dissatisfaction increases, and the tension often turns into tension in her body after years. And she also no longer feels when she's pushing herself beyond her limits. So she has no protection against exhaustion, against the breaking down, and it happened several times. And the distance between the breakdowns was even faster and smaller. And so she was looking for a dialogue. So I recommended this existential attitude to life, and I explained it to her at this point that she should be keeping an open mind in the perception of what is there, and she has to say yes. And I explained it to her because she also liked the theoretical knowledge about these things. And in practical terms, I said to her, this means that instead of starting from plans and expectations, we should focus on, we should put this apart. Yeah, we should focus on the addressing, on the open attitude of being addressed. And we cannot do and have everything at the same time. But with this attitude, we can recognize what is essential for us. And the plan and the wishes also flow into this and set the tone by selecting areas and realms in which life should take place. I constantly check while I'm doing this. Do I still have consent? Is it right for me? Do I have enough strength? And the existential attitude is what I do it completely. The presence, to have presence in doing things, being whole in the situation. Otherwise, it has no sense. The deficit is not of not being able to have enough cannot be solved by quantity. Quantity attempts inevitably leads to exhaustion. The motto for her would be less is more. This could be important for her to live more deeper. We know this cognitive explanation, then we have to break it down into the actual dialogue. And I ask her, do you feel like you're missing something right now? And she was he was afraid. After some hesitation, she said, yes, I pronounced it at, let's say, for her, more or less. Yes, this feeling is still there. What are you missing now? I asked. And she just says nothing. Do commentators get loud in so-called commentators get loud inside you? And she said, maybe, I'm not sure, I don't know. If you had to die now, what would be the worst thing you would have missed out? And she said, um, nothing specific. There's so many valuable and interesting things that I would have experienced and I've never done them. And I will never have them. So the comment and the anxiety comes up in me. And I'm afraid they say you're missing out something, you're missing out on life. And what do you think? Where is this feeling coming from? In the existential analysis, it's very clear to us. When I'm not here, I miss life. She has the right feeling. And I said, yes, now we need you. You have to take a stand on this. And since it's about her whole life, it should be involved. Couldn't you face it with and say these feelings, contrast your feelings and say, what I'm doing now is the best thing I could do or I can do in my life right now, in my whole life. If you just take this phrase with you, I'm really, really satisfied. Because if it's true that what I'm doing now is the most important thing in this moment, then I'm not saying to myself, I'm missing out something. And I say this is the best thing I can do in my life right now. I do the best thing possible. And that's essential to the wholeness of life today. I am the central point, and life depends on me. I place my daily actions in the biographical perspective. And this surprised her. She was still quite astonished by such a question when I tried to concretize it now and to apply it to be experienced immediately. And I told her, how are you feeling now in this conversation? Do you still feel, because this is another, this question demanded an inner statement. Do you still feel like you're losing time or missing out something? Now she had to use the specific question to check with herself whether she was now experiencing the same thing as always, or whether this lesson had brought something different to her experience when she opens up to this. And she came and she said, yeah, I know there were hundreds other valuable things, but that it is the really best for now to stick with this topic, and that, yeah, probably in this lesson I couldn't have done anything better. Yes, I feel this. That put the process into the perspective of life as a whole. The event now has meaning for her whole life and experienced as fulfilling in this light. In addition, she has personally faced up the situation and has thus made herself present. To be fully present in the current and concrete event, and to have detached oneself from one's expectations and ideas. And she allowed herself to be addressed by what is actually happening, and at the same time to place herself in the broad perspective of shaping one's life. And this, at the end, gave her peace and warmth, relaxation, and she wanted to remain in this calm, maintain it, and she felt that she felt really good. And when asked whether she could now hold on this experience and this process, she said, yes, it's probably all about breathing and just being. And now I knew that she understood. And I knew also her history afterwards, that it was not easy for her in the first few weeks. She always tried to carry it out. She took some steps back, but now she had a orientation. She knew how to do this. Thank you very much for your attention.